Hi, I'm Daniel, I'm a sleep physician, and if you want to sleep amazingly well, this channel is for you. Super excited about this second episode exploring the model. In this episode, we're going to talk about thoughts. We're going to see that thoughts are nothing but sentences in your brain and exploit that knowledge to get you to a place of amazing sleep. Hey there and welcome to the second episode exploring the model that's gonna really change this channel, I believe, and help us get a framework that is gonna be super helpful. And in this episode, we're talking about thoughts. We all know what a thought is. It's a sentence in our brain, something that our brain makes up. And it could be simple as, I think that's a squirrel, or whoa, that's the biggest truck I've ever seen in my entire life. Those are examples of thoughts. We all know what they are. Why are they so important though? Why they're super important? Well, it is because thoughts create emotions. Check that out. Let's do it again. Thoughts create emotions. When you first hear that, it may not sound groundbreaking, but it is a huge and immensely important insight. I think more than anything, because emotions we often think are completely random, right? You know, often people describe that my anxiety is out of control. I just feel anxious all the time for no reason. That is actually not the case. Anxiety does not have a life of its own. When you are feeling anxious, it's because of a thought. When you're feeling sad, there is a thought behind that. When you're feeling happy, that is because of a thought. Feelings come from thoughts. Now, if you're a little bit skeptical here, try this. Let's do a little experiment here. I'm going to give you some thoughts, and you query yourself and see how that makes you feel. So first, think of a fluffy little bunny rabbit, okay? And then think of a serial killer. And then think about Switzerland. Now, chances are, when I say bunny rabbit, you just feel kind of some happiness there, you know, a warm feeling, happiness. When you think about a serial killer, you feel anxiety, fear. And when you think about Switzerland, you feel pretty neutral. You feel kind of neither happy nor sad nor fearful, right? So that is just one little example of how thoughts produce feelings. Now, it's a little harder to prove that every single emotion is the result of a thought. But if we again pick anxiety and say you're feeling super anxious, and you do this thought experiment where you think, I'm super anxious, and the thought in my brain is, life is amazing right now. You can see how that doesn't add up. That doesn't go together. You wouldn't feel anxious if the thought in your brain was, life is amazing. And that's kind of an indirect proof that emotions are produced by thoughts. So that is hyper important to know. Now, as we mentioned earlier on, a thought, a very good way of thinking of thoughts is it's a sentence in your brain. And that really demystifies it, you know, and makes it very approachable, simple. A thought is just a sentence in your brain. And the important thing here is that, that sentence in your brain in no way is the truth, you know. I can think that there's milk in my refrigerator. I think so, but whether there is or not, it doesn't, has nothing to do with my thought. Or I can think that I can fly. That doesn't make it possible for me to fly. Or I can think I can't sleep. None of those thoughts represent the truth. They're just, again, a sentence in your brain. But check this out. You are often confused. You often confuse feelings, emotions, and thoughts. Check this out. Listen to this. I feel like you're not listening to me. I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like things are really going my way, right? Are those feelings or thoughts? check this out. I feel like you're not listening to me is a thought. I feel like I'm going to die is a thought. I feel like things are going my way. That is a thought, but it describes an emotion. I feel like you're not listening to me is a thought, but in that thought, you can hear that that person is probably also frustrated. And the same applies to the second one. There are thoughts, but there's an underlying feeling. So there are really kind of two things going on. But it's super important to know that whenever you say something that's longer than just like one word, I feel like, then that is a thought and not a feeling, not an emotion. And why is that so important? Well, again, we don't have direct control of our emotions. We don't have that. So when you mix up the two, it can have really dire consequences. Check this one out. I feel like I'm going to die. If you identify that as a feeling, that can easily lead you down the path of avoidance. I feel like I'm going to die. I don't want to feel that way. I'm going to try to avoid that feeling. I'm going to eat all this candy, or I'm going to pop a Xanax, or I'm going to do this thing because I don't want to feel that way. I want to avoid that feeling. As we saw in the first episode where we explored the model, avoiding a negative is very, very harmful to you, because that's what you're avoiding will grow. There are many reasons for that we explored in the first episode. So when you confuse a thought and a feeling, it is very likely that you try to avoid that feeling, which is actually a kind of both a thought and a feeling. That is not helpful at all. Let's say you go down the other route. I feel like I'm going to die, right? And you break that up. You identify that I think I'm going to die is a thought, and the feeling that thought produces, or the underlying feeling, is anxiety. In reality, you think you're going to die and you are anxious. Right there, amazing things have happened. First of all, you've identified a feeling. Right off the bat, there's less mystery. If you just say, I'm anxious, right there and then, that is super helpful. That can really relieve that anxiety. And instead of now trying to avoid a feeling, which you should not do, you can just sit with that anxiety until it passes. You don't try to avoid it. That is a super important product of identifying that there was a thought and a feeling here. Now, secondly, you've identified a thought. I think I'm going to die. And you can work with that thought. And where this exploration of the model will lead us to is thought work. So you've done two super important things there when you have dissected the feeling from the thought. Now, finally here, let's go over some very common things you will hear someone with insomnia say, something that you may have said. I can't sleep. If I don't sleep tonight, I'm going to have a terrible day tomorrow. If I don't fall asleep before 9 p.m., I'm not going to fall asleep the entire night. If I wake up, then that's it. I'm not going to fall back asleep. If I don't take my medication, I don't sleep at all. Those are thoughts. Those are simply sentences in your brain. They're nothing but a sentence in your brain. They do not in any way represent truth. And when you change those thoughts, guess what? You can change your feelings, which in itself is huge. And there are much more good things that come when you start working with your thoughts. So we'll conclude this episode on thoughts, and we'll continue our weekly exploration of the model with the next episode coming up next week. If you have any questions, please post them here, or as always, send me an email, and I hope to have you back real soon. Until then, take it easy.